Alrighty, so we're watching CBS News. They just released the identity of the agent. Um, doesn't look like it's being well received, as you can see that it's close to about 5,000 dislikes to about 3,000 likes. So let's go ahead and see what they say.
In Minnesota and across the country, protesters clashed with federal agents one day after an ICE officer fatally shot a woman in Minneapolis. Hundreds gathered at a federal building in Minneapolis where ICE operates. At least 3 people were taken away in handcuffs. Federal agents deployed chemical spray. U.S. officials identified the victim as 37-year-old Renee Good, a U.S. citizen. City leaders say she was a legal observer of federal actions in the city and was not a target for an ICE-related arrest. And we're now learning more about the ICE officer who fired the fatal shot. Officials identified him as Jonathan Ross. Court records show he started working with ICE in Minnesota back in 2017. Now, CBS News chief correspondent Matt Gutman is live in Minneapolis right now. So, Matt, what is the scene like there right now?
Juliet, shockingly, 12 hours after about 700 protesters arrayed here, lined this side of the street, there is still this face-off between, on the one hand, you can see those federal officers, they're kind of silhouetted in the dark on the other side over there, and a smattering of protesters that are left here.
Silhouetted in the dark over there, like trying to paint them as boogeymen. That's the vibe I'm getting here.
But for hours, there were these back and forth skirmishes, and there's still a whole bunch of residue from that. This is basically pepper spray that was shot at the ground and dried. You can see the sort of the rain dropping off of it. But across the city, there are still protests. There are a couple of big marches planned elsewhere, and there's still concern that, just one spark could set this city exploding in protests. So far, it has not happened yet, Juliet.
Well, Matt, we do know the name of the ICE officer who fired the fatal shot. What else are you learning about him?
We know that there was another incident about 6 months ago in which, in a very similar situation, we understand, the officer was trying to make an apprehension, we are told, and at some point, the motorist did not stop, did not heed commands. That officer smashed the back window, tried to unlatch or unlock the front door, and that motorist took off, dragging the officer for about 100 yards. Apparently, he had to get stitches. Was not seriously injured, but a very similar incident. And,
Wasn't seriously injured. The man's in the hospital bed, bleeding out of his hands and arm. You're gonna say he isn't seriously injured. Wow.
it is something that people here are talking about, that this perhaps is a pattern. But additionally to that, there's a lot of fear in general about these officers.
So kind of, he had a reason. Kind of crazy when you see it in that light.
Many of them are masked, Juliet. Some of them are very heavily armed. And the protesters that we've been talking to and the organizers that we've been talking to say
At the end of the day, we're all human and we all fear for our lives. That's what that just tells me right there.
that they're much more afraid of them than they are of the regular police, because they believe that these officers would be more willing to shoot people dead. So it is a very different kind of sentiment that we experienced perhaps in the George Floyd protest 5 years ago that rocked this city in particular, but really reverberated across the country. One thing that is not in question.
I want you to ask these protesters if they would go to Iran and protest and see what's going on to their protesters in Iran right now.
Question is the stamina of some of these protesters, Juliet. One more addendum to that. By and large, the absolute vast majority of protesters that we've seen have been completely peaceful today.
Yeah, noted. Okay, so the investigation into the shooting is now solely being led by the FBI, no longer in collaboration with Minnesota investigators. So what will the FBI be looking for when they watch the videos?
There's a key term that people are going to probably become more familiar with, and that's called supremacy. The FBI wants to be able to take control of this case, especially the criminal aspects of it, over local agencies. That will give them more control over it. So they're going to be looking at everything. They're going to take a look at all the video. If there's body-worn camera, they will examine that as well. They're going to be looking at the positioning of that officer, where he was when the shots were fired. But one of the key legal terms that is going to be examined and upon which this entire case might hinge is the frame of mind of that officer. Did he, at that time, have a reasonable belief that his life was going to be threatened, or that he...
If I've been in a similar situation in the past, I'm going to relate it to the situation I am in now. That's just human nature.
He was at a risk of serious bodily harm. That's what it's going to focus on, not whether it actually was objectively a situation in which he could have been killed, but did he feel at that time, and did he have reason to believe at that time that his life could be in jeopardy? That is going to be really the crux of the question. Unclear how long, Juliet, that this investigation is going to last. We understand the FBI has already started, but there is no timeline that has been offered, at least to the media, so far.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, his frame of mind at the time. All right, Matt Gutman. Matt, thank you so much.
Yeah, this low-key pissed me off. They're sitting there painting. Oh, hold on. Boomer over here screaming in my ear. Yeah, nah. They're over there painting the ICE agents as bad guys. I don't like it. In the dark, standing there menacingly. That's ridiculous.